Well, good afternoon. I'm Reverend David. Thank you for joining me today for Disciple Time as we continue on in our series Made for This Moment. Today, we're going to be focusing on how heaven is set in motion. And this is interesting because it just so happens that this week, September 29th, is the feast of the Archangels Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael in the church. So I thought today I would talk a little bit about angels and their ministry to us. First off, I want to just say that the word angel comes from the Greek word angelos, which corresponds to the Hebrew word malach. Now, angel properly means a messenger or a delegate, and this could either be human or heavenly, someone sent by God to proclaim his message. And understand that the context is going to determine if the messenger is of human or divine origin when we're reading the Bible in the original languages. So, here's an example of angelos as a human messenger. We see this in Matthew chapter 11, verses 7 through 10, where Jesus is talking to his disciples. He says, as John's disciples were leaving, Jesus began to speak to the crowd about John. So there's our context, who we're talking about. What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed swayed by the wind? If not, what did you go out to see? A man dressed in fine clothes? No, those who wear fine clothes are in king's palaces. Then what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, I will send my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way before you. And here that word is angelon, not angelos, because it has a different ending, because it is an accusative masculine singular noun instead of a nominative noun. We're going to see now an example of a heavenly messenger that is divine. So we have in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel, angelos, that's that nominative masculine singular noun, Gabriel. So we know St. Gabriel is a divine being, to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. The virgin's name was Mary. The angel went to her and said, greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you. Now, there we have it. We have a good example of a human messenger and a good example of a heavenly messenger. What we're going to focus on today, since we're looking towards that feast on September 29th of the archangels, is the ministry of the heavenly beings that we call angels. So what are some of their ministries? Well, first off, the primary ministry is to worship and serve God and all that entails. So we see in Psalm 103:20, bless the Lord, you his angels, mighty in strength, who perform his word, obeying the voice of his word. Then in Isaiah chapter 6, verses 1 through 3, we see the vision that Isaiah had. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord high and exalted, seating on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were the seraphim. We'll talk about the different choirs of angels a little bit later. Each with 6 wings, not just 2. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. This is not confined to the Old Testament. Here's a New Testament reference of this same type of vision in Revelation 7:11. And all the angels were standing around the throne and around the elders and the 4 living creatures, and they fell on their faces before the throne and worshiped God. So we see some of what they're doing. What's another ministry of the heavenly angels? Well, to guide and protect God's people. We see here in Exodus 23:20, see, I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I have prepared. This is as Moses was going through the wilderness towards the promised land. We also have a psalm here, 34:7. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them, speaking into that protection that angels give. And Psalm 91:11 is probably one of the most well-known about the ministry of angels. For he will give his angels charge concerning you to guard you in all your ways. Well, another ministry of the heavenly angels is communication from God. And we see this all through the Bible. One example in Judges chapter 6, verses 11 through 12 is this. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite. where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." And then, of course, the angel goes forward and communicates God's will for Gideon and how that's going to help the Israelite people as he's going to be a judge in that scenario. And then, of course, in Luke 1:19, the angel said to him, "I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I have been sent to speak to you and to tell you this good news." So there it is, delivering communication from God. Another ministry of heavenly angels is healing and helping. And this can be, this word meps here, this is not really a word. This is just to help you understand that this healing and this helping can be mental, it can be emotional, it can be physical, and it can be spiritual. See, it's a totality of help. And we see in the book of Tobit, chapter 12, verses 14 and 15, this happening. So I was sent to you to put you to the test. At the same time, however, God sent me to heal you and your daughter-in-law, Sarah. I am Raphael, one of the 7 angels who stand and serve before the glory of God. Then again, we see this healing ministry of the angels in Luke chapter 23, verses 40 through 44, where Christ is about to go pray in the garden. It says, "On reaching the place, he said to them, 'Pray that you will not fall into temptation.' He withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them, knelt down and prayed, 'Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done.' An angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground." We also see angels ministering to Christ in the wilderness when he was tempted after 40 days. Now, let's look a little bit closer, because it's the feast of Michael, Raphael, and St. Gabriel at their ministries in particular. And one of the things you have to understand about angels is that their names are actually compound Hebrew words. So you will always see the word El at the end of an angel's name, because El, that is the Hebrew letters Aleph and Lamed, El means God. And so their name kind of indicates their ministry. So if you think about Raphael, the Hebrew word Rapha means to heal. So if you say Raphael, that means, God heals. So that can kind of help you as you're looking at some of the angels and thinking about how you might seek their assistance. So let's look at that real briefly. Saint Michael, Mikael, who is like God. We could seek Michael's aid for protection and for strengthening in our virtue. Saint Raphael, we've already spoke about that. God has healed. My healer is God. We could seek Raphael's aid for healing and also for traveling mercies, because he traveled along with Tobit. And also Saint Gabriel, strength of God. My strength is God. We seek Gabriel's help for guidance from God and communication from God. Many times in the New Testament, we see, like in the case of Joseph, God will communicate to us through dreams, through the angel. And so, very interesting, right? How about St. Thomas Aquinas? He gave us the heavenly hierarchy of angels, along with Dionysius, the Arachibabite. Oh, that's a mouthful, right? But here we see that St. Thomas gave us a following hierarchical list of the 9 angelic choirs, using the traditional names from the Hebrew and the Greek through the Latin Vulgate of St. Jerome. So here's the passages where we will see these different angelic choirs mentioned, and that's the seraphim, the cherubim, the thrones, the dominions, the virtues, the powers, the principalities, the archangels, and the angels. Now, one way to kind of utilize this in your prayer life is the Chaplet of the 9 choirs of angels, or also called the Chaplet of St. Michael. And you'll see it has 9 kind of decades, and that's to correspond to each of the 9 choirs of angels. And you pray for specific things for each one. It might be protection or holiness, grace and Christian perfection, healing, could be strength in the virtues, power over unruly passions, strength against temptations. All of this is covered as you pray this chaplet, and if you've never done that, I just recommend that you try that out. Well, what's the application for the journey this week? It's this: never hesitate to seek angelic aid. Use all of your Christian resources. Yes, God has a host of angels that are doing all these ministries, and they're there to help us too. So don't be afraid to go to them. Thank you for joining me today as we look at Heaven Set in Motion.